My parents ruined my 18th birthday to soothe my sister's fake trauma, so I quietly packed my bags, moved out, and happily watched their so-called perfect life fall apart. I am a 20-year-old guy now, but this whole nightmare started exactly 2 years ago, right around my 18th birthday. To really understand why I did what I did, and why I do not feel a single ounce of guilt about watching my own family lose absolutely everything, you need to understand the environment I grew up in. We lived in a sprawling, gated community in suburban Phoenix, Arizona. You know the kind of neighborhood I am talking about. The lawns are artificially green despite the desert heat, the driveways are needlessly wide, and every single family is desperately trying to prove that they are richer, happier, and more successful than the people living next door. My parents were the undisputed champions of this toxic game. My dad, Victor, owned a mid-sized construction company that specialized in building custom homes for the local elite. My mom, Valerie, was a high-end real estate agent who practically lived in her designer blazers, selling million-dollar mansions to tech executives and wealthy retirees. Together, they pulled in a very comfortable six-figure income. From the outside looking in, we were the ultimate American success story. We had the big house, the massive pool in the backyard, and the two-car garage. It should have been a great life. But the truth is, our family was nothing more than a carefully constructed movie set, and the star of that terrible movie was my older sister, Penelope. Penelope was 24 years old at the time, and she had been the undisputed golden child of the family since the second she was born. We are not just talking about a kid who got spoiled a little bit. We are talking about a full-blown, terrifying case of princess syndrome. Even in her 20s, she would throw literal tantrums if a restaurant got her order wrong, causing everyone around us to stare while my parents scrambled to apologize and buy her dessert to calm her down. The disparity between how my parents treated the two of us was not even subtle. It was violently obvious. For her 16th birthday, long before I even had a permit, Penelope got a brand new metallic white BMW. It had custom rims, leather seats that still smelled like the factory, and it cost more than most people make in a year. My dad paid for it in cash. When I turned 16 and got my license, I was handed the keys to my dad's old, beat-up work truck. It had over 200,000 miles on it, massive rust spots eating through the doors, and a radio that only caught fuzzy AM stations. I was just grateful to have wheels, but looking back, the message was clear. She was luxury. I was utility. Penelope learned early on that tears and screaming were her personal cheat codes for life. If she wanted something and my parents said no, she would drop to the floor, scream until her face turned purple, and threaten to run away. My parents always caved. Always. By the time I was old enough to form actual memories, the dynamic was set in stone. The entire household revolved around keeping Penelope happy, preventing Penelope's meltdowns, and managing Penelope's completely unearned ego. They built their entire social identity around being the successful family with the beautiful, perfect kids, but only one of us was actually allowed to enjoy the benefits of that success. I was just there to make sure the background stayed clean. You might be wondering why my parents needed me around if they loved Penelope so much. The answer is incredibly simple. Victor and Valerie were fantastic at projecting a wealthy image, but behind closed doors, they were an administrative disaster. My dad was a brilliant contractor when it came to reading blueprints and managing a job site, but put him in front of an Excel spreadsheet and his brain completely shut down. My mom could charm the wallet out of a billionaire, but she had the attention span of a goldfish. She constantly double-booked clients, lost important paperwork, and forgot to pay the water bill on our own house. That is where I came in. By the time I was 15, I had basically become the unpaid, invisible executive assistant for both my family and my parents' careers. I was the one who stayed up until midnight balancing my dad's billing sheets so his subcontractors would actually get paid on time. I was the one who color-coded my mom's digital calendar, reminding her every single morning which VIP client she was supposed to meet and which house keys she needed to bring. I grocery shopped. I planned the dinners. I picked up my dad's dry cleaning when his back was acting up. I did the heavy lifting to keep their perfect lives running so they could focus all their emotional energy on Penelope. The financial double standard was absolutely sickening. Penelope was in her 6th year of attending college on and off, changing her major every time a class got slightly difficult. She received an allowance of $3,200 a month. Let me repeat that. $3,200 a month, just to exist, party, and occasionally show up to a campus. Meanwhile, I was working 25 hours a week at a local gym wiping down sweaty equipment just so I could pay for my own gas, my own clothes, and my own school supplies. I remember one specific week that still makes my blood boil. Penelope decided she was bored with her bedroom aesthetic. She cried to my mom that her room felt spiritually draining. Within 48 hours, my parents dropped $8,000 on brand new, custom-ordered boutique furniture from Scottsdale to redecorate a room she barely even slept in. That exact same week, I got accepted into a prestigious summer leadership camp. It cost $400. When I sat my parents down and asked if they could help me cover the enrollment fee, my dad sighed, rubbed his temples, and gave me a long lecture about how the family budget was extremely tight that month. He looked me dead in the eye and told me that as a young man, I needed to learn financial responsibility. They used my maturity against me. Because I did not scream, cry, or crash my truck, they treated my independence as an excuse to ignore me completely. Every time Penelope failed a class or got a speeding ticket, they hired expensive tutors and lawyers, acting like it was a tragedy that required the whole family to unite. Every time I brought home a straight-A report card, they just nodded and said, "We knew you could do it," before immediately turning back to deal with whatever fake crisis Penelope had invented that day. I was keeping their house of cards standing, and they did not even realize I was the glue. Despite all the neglect, I kept telling myself that everything would magically change when I turned 18. In my naive teenage mind, 18 was the finish line. It was legal adulthood. I figured once I crossed that threshold, my parents would finally look at me differently. They would have to respect me as an equal, acknowledge the crushing amount of work I did to keep their lives functioning, and finally celebrate me for who I was, not just for the problems I solved for them. I was actually in a really good spot in my life. I had maintained a 4.2 GPA throughout high school, entirely on my own. I had already secured early acceptance to Arizona State University, along with a partial academic scholarship that took a huge weight off my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I wanted to be the center of attention in a positive way. I did not want a massive, ridiculous party like the ones Penelope threw. I just wanted a genuine celebration with the people who actually mattered to me. I approached my parents a month in advance. I asked if we could host a nice, casual backyard barbecue. Just 30 people. Family, some guys from my wrestling team, my coworkers from the gym, and my girlfriend, Stella. I even offered to pay for the food using the money I had saved up from scrubbing treadmills. To my total shock, my parents seemed genuinely enthusiastic. My mom started tearing up, telling her wealthy friends that her little boy was becoming a man. My dad slapped me on the back and insisted he would handle the grill and even rent some lighting for the patio. I threw myself into planning. I spent weeks organizing everything. I used my own money to order a massive, custom-designed cake from the most expensive bakery downtown. I spent hours building the perfect playlist, making sure it had a mix of music that both my friends and my parents' friends would enjoy. I sent out formal invitations to the people who really anchored my life. I invited my best friend Miles, who had always had my back. I invited Stella, who had listened to me vent about my family for a year. Most importantly, I invited Coach Donovan from my high school wrestling team. He was more of a father figure to me than Victor ever was. He taught me discipline, respect, and how to stand up for myself. I wanted him there to see me step into adulthood. The week of the party, everything felt perfect. The backyard was cleaned up, the patio furniture was arranged, the drinks were sitting in coolers in the garage, and the weather forecast was flawless. For the first time in 18 years, I actually felt like I was seen. I felt like my parents were finally putting me first. I felt like I mattered. I had absolutely no idea that they were about to deliver the most ruthless, soul-crushing betrayal of my entire life. Exactly 3 days before my birthday party, the universe decided to test my family's priorities, and they failed in the most spectacular way imaginable. Penelope had been planning a massive, luxurious spring break trip to Cancun with her sorority sisters for 6 months. This was not a normal college road trip. This was a full-blown influencer fantasy. My dad had already shelled out $4,500 to cover her share of a luxury beachfront resort, first-class flights, and daily spending money. Penelope had spent the entire month buying designer bikinis, getting expensive spray tans, and buying brand new luggage just for the airport photos. Then, on Thursday afternoon, her entire friend group had a massive, explosive falling out. To this day, I do not know the full details, but it involves some ridiculous drama about who hooked up with whose ex-boyfriend. The result was instantaneous. The trip was cancelled. The deposits were completely lost. Penelope was abruptly kicked out of the travel group and found herself stuck at home in Phoenix for spring break with absolutely nowhere to go and no one to show off to. When she walked through the front door that afternoon, I thought someone had died. She was screaming at the top of her lungs, a guttural, terrifying sound. She threw her brand-new, $1,000 suitcase across the marble foyer, smashing a decorative vase. She collapsed onto the living room rug, hyperventilating, crying so hard her makeup was melting down her face, screaming that her life was officially over and that she was the victim of the cruelest betrayal in human history. The reaction from my parents was immediate and sickening. They did not tell her to calm down. They did not tell her to act her age. They went into full-blown emergency crisis management mode. My mom, Valerie, was literally walking out the door to show a $2 million property to a very important tech CEO. She took one look at Penelope crying on the rug, picked up her phone, and canceled the showing on the spot, potentially losing tens of thousands of dollars in commission, just so she could sit on the floor and rock her 24-year-old daughter like an infant. My dad, Victor, who was supposed to be at a critical city planning meeting for a new housing development, rushed home 20 minutes later. He immediately canceled his weekend golf plans and his weekly poker night. The house turned into a trauma center. My mom ordered Penelope's favorite spicy Thai food from a restaurant 40 minutes away. My dad actually went upstairs and ran her a bubble bath using these ridiculously overpriced bath bombs she hoarded. I stood in the kitchen, silently chopping vegetables for my birthday barbecue prep, listening to my mom call Penelope's therapist to demand an emergency virtual session because her daughter was experiencing severe emotional trauma. They treated a canceled vacation like a terminal illness. And as I watched them scramble to soothe her, a dark, heavy knot started forming in my stomach. Saturday morning arrived. We were exactly 24 hours away from my 18th birthday party. I was up at 6 in the morning, out in the backyard hosing down the patio and setting up the folding tables we had rented. I was trying to ignore the heavy, suffocating mood inside the house. I just wanted to get through the weekend, celebrate with my friends, and have one good memory. At about 8 o'clock, I was standing in the kitchen marinating the chicken when Penelope slowly descended the staircase. She was wearing her expensive silk pajamas, dragging her feet like a war veteran. Her eyes were puffy, and she had this tragic, hollow look on her face that I knew was entirely manufactured for sympathy. She poured herself a glass of cucumber water, looked at me, and sighed heavily. "I cannot handle having a party here tomorrow," she announced. Her voice was weak, trembling just enough to sound authentic to an idiot. "I am way too emotionally fragile right now. The noise, the music, all your loud friends, it is going to trigger my anxiety about the Cancun betrayal. It will completely set back my emotional recovery. I need a peaceful healing environment this weekend." I froze. I slowly put the knife down on the cutting board. I looked at her, hoping it was a sick joke. "Penelope, it is my 18th birthday party. Tomorrow. Everything is paid for. People have changed their schedules to be here. I am not canceling it." Right on cue, her eyes welled up with fresh tears. "I know, and I am sorry about the timing. But I am going through something incredibly traumatic. Having a bunch of people laughing and partying in my house while I am suffering would be so insensitive to my mental health. My mom walked into the kitchen right at that moment, holding a cup of herbal tea. She did not even ask for context. She just immediately started nodding along with Penelope. "She has a very valid point, Wyatt," my mom said gently, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Your sister is dealing with a profound sense of rejection right now. This whole cocoon situation has really shattered her confidence." "Mom, it is my 18th birthday." I raised my voice, the frustration finally leaking out. "I invited Coach Donovan. I invited Stella's parents. The custom cake is being delivered today. We have been planning this for a month." Penelope sniffled and played her ultimate trump card. "If you really loved me as a brother, you would postpone a stupid barbecue until I am feeling better. Family is supposed to support each other during dark times, Wyatt. Not be selfish." Before I could even respond to that absolute garbage, my dad walked in. He assessed the situation, his daughter crying, his wife looking stressed, and his son demanding a party, and he made his choice instantly. "Wyatt, your sister needs us right now," Victor said. His voice was firm, leaving absolutely no room for debate. "You are strong. You are mature enough to handle a little disappointment. She is not built the same way you are. We are canceling the party. We will reschedule it for next month when things calm down. Family comes first." The casualness of his dismissal hit me like a physical blow to the chest. He did not yell. He did not argue. He just casually wiped my 18th birthday out of existence because it was slightly inconvenient for his favorite child's fake depression. It was not just about the barbecue. In that frozen moment in the kitchen, I saw 18 years of my life flash before my eyes. I saw every spreadsheet I balanced for him, every schedule I fixed for my mom, every mess I cleaned up. I saw clearly that I was not a son to them. I was a utility appliance. And you do not throw a party for a dishwasher. I did not scream. I did not throw a tantrum. I just looked at Victor, looked at Valerie, and said, "Okay." I turned around, walked up to my room, and shut the door. The rest of that Saturday was the most humiliating day of my life. I had to sit on the edge of my bed and make the phone calls. First, I called my girlfriend, Stella. She was incredibly confused and a little hurt that I was canceling 24 hours before the event. I could hear the disappointment in her voice. Next, I called my best friend, Miles. He had already bought a gift and shifted his work schedule. Finally, I had to call Coach Donovan. That was the hardest one. He was a man of his word, and he expected the same from his athletes. When I told him the party was off, there was a long pause on the line. He asked me, very seriously, if everything was okay at home. I lied to all of them. I told them I had come down with a terrible stomach bug and was throwing up constantly. I could not bring myself to admit the pathetic truth that my parents had canceled my coming-of-age milestone to accommodate my 24-year-old sister's vacation drama. Later that afternoon, the bakery delivered the cake. It was massive, beautifully decorated with my name and university colors. I paid the delivery guy with my own cash, carried the heavy box into the kitchen, and without a second thought, I shoved the entire thing, box and all, straight into the outdoor garbage can. I walked back into the house and looked out the massive bay windows toward the backyard. The sun was shining. And there, lounging on a premium pool chair, was Penelope. She was wearing a new designer bikini, sunglasses on, sipping a cold drink. She had her phone out, clearly recording a sad, aesthetic video for her Instagram followers about finding peace in the midst of betrayal. She looked like she was enjoying a luxury spa retreat. She was not traumatized. She was bored, and my party was just collateral damage to keep the house quiet for her nap. I stood there watching her for a long time. The anger in my chest did not explode. Instead, it turned completely ice-cold. That night, sitting in the dark of my bedroom, I realized something incredibly powerful. They relied on me to keep their lives organized, but I did not rely on them for anything anymore. I made a silent vow to myself. I was done. I was completely, absolutely done being the invisible pillar holding up their fake perfect lives. If you're enjoying the story so far, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below with the name of the city you are living in right now. Every single comment helps push the video to more people, and I appreciate your support so much. Now, let's get back to the drama. The next morning was Sunday. It was the exact day of my 18th birthday. I woke up to my alarm at 6 in the morning, stared at the ceiling for a few minutes, and waited for something to feel different. Nothing did. The house was dead quiet. I walked downstairs to the kitchen, expecting maybe a sticky note on the counter or a leftover muffin. There was absolutely zero acknowledgement that this day was any different from a random Tuesday. Victor had already left for a construction site. Apparently, Sunday was just another workday when it came to my birthday, despite him promising to grill burgers for me 24 hours earlier. Valerie was standing by the high-end blender, carefully measuring out expensive organic chia seeds and imported dragon fruit to make Penelope her favorite morning smoothie. When I walked in, my mom just glanced at me, told me good morning, and asked if I could take the trash out because the garbage truck was coming early on Monday. She did not say happy birthday. She did not even look me in the eye. Her entire focus was on making sure Penelope woke up to the perfect aesthetic breakfast. Around noon, Penelope finally graced us with her presence. She walked into the living room, scrolled through her phone for a solid 20 minutes, and then actually had the audacity to sigh loudly and glare at me. I was just sitting on the couch, quietly reading a book required for my senior literature class. You know, you do not have to sit there looking so miserable, Penelope snapped, crossing her arms. It is not my fault your little barbecue got cancelled. You are really bringing down the mood in the house right now by being so quiet and distant. Some of us are dealing with real problems and severe disappointments, Wyatt. You need to grow up and stop making this about you. That was the exact moment it happened. People always talk about a breaking point being loud, like an explosion or a screaming match. For me, it was a completely silent snap in my brain. Looking at her standing there, lecturing me about maturity while drinking a $10 smoothie my mom made for her, I felt the last lingering thread of familial obligation dissolve into nothing. The anger evaporated. The sadness vanished completely. What replaced it was a chilling, absolute clarity. I realized I was legally an adult. I had my own money saved up from 2 solid years of wiping down gym equipment. I had genuine friends. I had a phenomenal grade point average. Most importantly, I had a functioning brain. I did not have to live as a background character in her miserable play anymore. I closed my book, looked at her blankly, and said, "You are right. I should be more mature." Then I walked upstairs to start planning my exit. The very first thing I did on Monday morning was exploit my new legal status. Before school, I took my rusty work truck and drove straight to a different bank branch across town, one where my parents did not have any accounts. I sat down with a banker, handed over my fresh 18-year-old identification, and opened a completely independent checking and savings account. Then I transferred every single penny I had earned from the gym, a little over $6,000, out of the joint account my parents had access to, and moved it into my new, secure vault. The feeling of signing those papers, knowing Victor and Valerie could no longer freeze my funds or steal my savings to pay for Penelope's messes, was the first real breath of air I had taken in years. Next, I started making strategic phone calls. I did not make a dramatic scene. I operated purely on logic. First, I called Coach Donovan. He and his wife had always treated me with incredible kindness, and I knew they had an empty guest room since their oldest son had just left for college out of state. I explained the situation to him plainly. I did not exaggerate or cry. I just told him my parents had canceled my 18th birthday to accommodate my sister's tantrum, and that I needed a stable place to live so I could finish my senior year strong and keep my university scholarships intact. Coach Donovan did not even hesitate. He told me I was like a son to them and that the room was mine for as long as I needed it. Second, I called my boss at the local gym. He had been asking me to take on more responsibilities for months. I told him I was moving out and needed to be fully financially independent. He immediately bumped me up to 30 hours a week and offered me a slight raise for taking on the closing shifts. Third, I met with my high school guidance counselor and explained the housing transition so my graduation paperwork and university applications would not be disrupted by my change of address. She was appalled by my parents' behavior and promised to fast-track all my documents. For the rest of that week, I put on the greatest acting performance of my life. I went home every day and played the role of the obedient, quiet son. I did the dishes. I took out the trash. I sorted Victor's mail and reminded Valerie about a dental appointment. My parents were so relieved that I was handling the disappointment maturely. They thought they had successfully crushed my rebellion. What they did not know was that every single day, when I left for school or the gym, I was carrying a backpack stuffed with my most vital possessions. I smuggled out my birth certificate, my social security card, my wrestling trophies, my electronics, and my best clothes, dropping them off at Coach Donovan's house piece by piece. The following Saturday arrived. It was exactly 1 week after they had hijacked my milestone. The timing was perfect. Valerie had a massive open house event on the other side of Phoenix. Victor was at a suburban construction site overseeing a foundation pour, and Penelope had taken her white BMW to an upscale outdoor mall to spend money she did not earn on clothes she did not need. The house was completely empty. I pulled my rusty truck right up to the front door. I did not rush. I walked systematically through my bedroom, packing the last of my belongings into heavy-duty black garbage bags and a few cardboard boxes. I stripped the bed sheets. I emptied the desk drawers. I took every single thing that belonged to me, leaving the room looking like a sterile, unlived in hotel space. I made sure to leave behind the things my parents had bought me that I did not care about, a few ugly sweaters, a cheap watch. I only took what was mine. I walked through the house one last time. I looked at the massive kitchen island where I had spent hundreds of hours cooking family dinners that nobody thanked me for. I looked at Victor's home office desk, piled high with unorganized invoices that he would now have to figure out on his own. I looked at Valerie's physical calendar on the fridge, knowing she had 3 overlapping appointments next week that I had intentionally not corrected. Before walking out the door, I placed my house key directly in the center of the kitchen island. Next to it, I left a single piece of notebook paper. I did not write a long, emotional essay. I kept it brief, surgical, and cold. Since my milestones, my efforts, and my feelings do not matter in this house, I have decided to go live somewhere they do. I have moved out. Do not attempt to contact me to fix your schedules or do your paperwork. Do not call me unless you are ready to issue a genuine apology and fundamentally change the way you treat me. I am going to finish high school and build my life with people who actually respect me. Good luck with everything. I walked out, locked the deadbolt from the inside, and pulled the front door shut. The heavy click of the latch echoing in the quiet suburban air was the best sound I had ever heard. I got into my truck, rolled the windows down, and drove away from the gated community. I did not look back in the rearview mirror. I did not shed a single tear. As the hot Arizona wind hit my face, the crushing weight I had been carrying on my shoulders for 18 years simply lifted away. I was finally free. Living with Coach Donovan's family was like stepping through a portal into a parallel universe where sanity actually existed. They asked about my day. They celebrated when I scored a high grade on a calculus exam. They actually expected everyone to clear their own plates after dinner. For the first time in my existence, I was treated like a human being with value, not a robotic maid programmed to serve a golden child. I thrived. I maintained my 4.2 GPA, crushed it at my gym job, and spent quality time with Stella and Miles. Meanwhile, back in my old gated community, the house of cards began to collapse almost instantly. It was fascinating to watch it unfold through the neighborhood grapevine and the frantic voicemails they kept leaving on my phone. Without me there serving as the family's unpaid administrative assistant, things started slipping through the cracks within the first 3 weeks. Victor, who relied entirely on my late-night spreadsheet organizing, completely forgot to submit a crucial bid for a lucrative commercial construction project. He miscalculated the materials for a residential job by almost 20%, eating deeply into his company's profit margins to fix the error. He kept leaving me desperate voicemails asking for the password to his own accounting software, which I completely ignored. Valerie's situation was even more embarrassing. Without me color-coding her digital calendar and physically handing her the right folders in the morning, her professional image began to disintegrate. During my second month away, she showed up to a $2 million property showing 45 minutes late because she got the address mixed up. Worse, she forgot the master lockbox keys at home. The wealthy clients, furious at having their time wasted, dropped her as their agent on the spot and went with a competitor. It was the first major blow to her pristine reputation in the cutthroat Phoenix real estate market. But the most immediate chaos was caused by Penelope. My parents suddenly found themselves trapped in a house with her, without me there to act as a buffer, a mediator, or a problem solver. When Penelope threw a tantrum because her laundry was not folded correctly, my mom could no longer yell at me to fix it. She had to deal with the screaming herself. The stress in that house must have been suffocating. Penelope's academic career was the next thing to spontaneously combust. She was technically a senior in college, but only because I had spent years quietly editing her essays, practically writing her research papers, and logging into her student portal to submit assignments before midnight while she was out partying. With her ghostwriter permanently gone, she was completely exposed. During her fall semester, she failed 3 classes outright. Desperate to keep up the illusion of intelligence, she actually paid someone she met online to take her final exams. She got caught immediately. The university dragged her before the Academic Integrity Board, and because she had a previous warning on her record, they expelled her. Just like that, 6 years of tuition money vanished into thin air with absolutely zero degree to show for it. Victor, terrified of the social embarrassment of having a college dropout daughter, panicked. He paid $15,000 to some sketchy online university program that promised an accelerated business degree. It turned out to be a complete scam. The website vanished a month later, taking his money with it. But Penelope's lack of discipline was not just academic, it was criminal. In the spring of my freshman year at college, she got arrested. She was at a high-end outdoor shopping plaza in Scottsdale, a place overflowing with wealthy housewives and security cameras. She walked into a luxury boutique, grabbed a designer leather purse worth $300, stuffed it into her shopping bag, and tried to walk out. Security tackled her before she even made it to the parking lot. The most pathetic part was that she had plenty of money on her debit card to pay for it. She did not steal because she was starving. She stole because she felt entitled to have whatever she wanted, and she loved the sick thrill of getting away with things. When the police searched her car, they found thousands of dollars worth of stolen cosmetics, sunglasses, and clothes from other stores in the plaza. She had been doing this for months. Victor had to hire a high-powered defense attorney, paying tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees and court costs to keep his precious daughter out of a jail cell. She was placed on probation, but the damage to Victor's bank account was massive. The fatal blow to my family's empire happened during my sophomore year at Arizona State University. Penelope had started dating this guy she met at a day club. He was the ultimate Phoenix finance bro stereotype. He wore rented luxury watches, drove a leased sports car, and constantly talked about how he was a cryptocurrency genius. He convinced Penelope that they could double their wealth in 3 months by investing in a new, exclusive digital token. Of course, it was a blatant pyramid scheme. But Penelope, desperate to prove she was successful after being expelled and arrested, went all in. The problem was, she did not have any of her own money left. So, she did what she had always done. She stole from our parents. Only this time, I was not there to catch the discrepancies in the bank statements and warn Victor before it was too late. Using her intimate knowledge of my parents' passwords and personal information, Penelope secretly gained access to their primary savings account. Over the course of 3 weeks, she initiated multiple wire transfers, funneling exactly $45,000 into her boyfriend's fake crypto platform. That money was Victor and Valerie's entire emergency fund. It was the cash they were relying on to pay their quarterly taxes and cover the gaps in Valerie's failing real estate commissions. When the crypto token inevitably crashed to zero and the boyfriend completely ghosted her, the money evaporated. But the financial horror story did not end there. While reviewing the bank logs to figure out where the $45,000 went, Victor and Valerie uncovered a secondary layer of absolute betrayal. Over the previous 12 months, Penelope had systematically opened multiple high-limit credit cards using Victor's social security number. She had forged Valerie's signature on personal loans. She had even taken out an auto loan to buy a used sports car that she had quietly crashed and abandoned. She had racked up exactly $80,000 in hidden, unauthorized debt under their names. Combined with the stolen cash, Penelope had single-handedly destroyed $125,000 of family wealth. The absolute worst part? My parents still refused to press criminal fraud charges against her. They chose to swallow the massive debt rather than let their golden child face a judge for identity theft. The financial devastation was brutal, rapid, and impossible to hide. My parents had built a lifestyle entirely dependent on a high cash flow to service their massive mortgage and luxury car leases. With the cash gone and an extra $80,000 of high-interest debt dragging them down, the math simply stopped working. Within 6 months of the crypto disaster, Victor's construction company went under. He could not make payroll, he could not afford materials, and his business reputation was completely ruined by unpaid subcontractors. Valerie's real estate career flatlined. In a business built entirely on appearances and trust, nobody wanted to hire an agent who was actively dodging debt collectors. The social execution in our gated community was ruthless. Word got out about Penelope's arrest, her expulsion, and the massive fraud. Neighbors who used to attend my parents' lavish dinner parties now pretended not to see them at the grocery store. The bank foreclosed on the beautiful, sprawling house where I grew up. They were forced to sell Victor's luxury truck and Valerie's beloved Mercedes just to afford bankruptcy lawyers. They had to downsize from a multi-million-dollar estate into a cramped, depressing 2-bedroom apartment in a run-down part of town. All the designer furniture they had bought for Penelope over the years was sold for pennies at a humiliating estate sale. The pressure of living in poverty with a daughter who ruined them completely shattered their 25-year marriage. They could no longer pretend they were a perfect team. Valerie blamed Victor for not being stricter with Penelope's spending. Victor blamed Valerie for coddling Penelope and refusing to press charges. The resentment turned toxic. They separated shortly after moving into the apartment. Victor moved into a spare bedroom at his brother's house, forced to take grueling physical labor jobs from his former competitors just to survive. Valerie had to take a humiliating hourly retail job at a department store, working nights and weekends for a fraction of what she used to make in a single commission. Their fake, pristine world had completely burned to the ground. And all the while, I watched from a safe distance, maintaining my perfect GPA, managing my own money, and living a life entirely free of their chaos. It all came full circle last month. I was sitting in my apartment near the university campus, drinking coffee and studying for my final exams in the business administration program. I was 20 years old, completely self-sufficient, and looking at several promising internship offers. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was an unknown number. Usually, I ignore those, but something made me swipe to answer. Wyatt. The voice was rough, trembling, and sounded incredibly old. It was Victor. He was calling from his brother's phone because I had permanently blocked his and Valerie's numbers nearly 2 years ago. I did not hang up immediately. I sat back in my chair and waited. "Please do not hang up, son," Victor begged. I had never, in my entire life, heard my father sound so completely defeated. The arrogant, dismissive tone he used when he canceled my 18th birthday was entirely gone. "I know you hate us. I know you have every right to never speak to us again. But we are drowning, Wyatt. We lost everything. The business is gone. The house is gone. Your mother and I are separated, both working minimum wage jobs until our bodies give out." He paused, and I could actually hear him choking back a sob. It was pathetic, but also deeply validating. And Penelope, she is 26 years old, living on an air mattress in your mother's apartment. She cannot hold a job. She does not know how to pay a bill. She is completely paralyzed without our money, and we do not have a single dime left to give her. We cannot even take care of ourselves anymore. Then, the phone shuffled, and I heard Valerie's voice. She was openly weeping, a messy, ugly cry that lacked any of her usual polished grace. "Wyatt, baby, I am so sorry. We were so wrong. We spent 2 years looking at the ruins of our lives, and we realized the truth. You were the only responsible one. You were the glue holding our entire family together, and we threw you away like garbage over a stupid vacation. Please. We do not want your money. We know you are a student. We just need your advice. We need you to tell us how to fix her. How do we fix this family?" I listened to them cry for a few more seconds. I searched my heart for pity, for anger, for the desperate need for their validation that I used to have when I was 17. I found absolutely nothing. Just a cold, calm indifference. "You are right," I said, my voice steady and completely emotionless. "You do not deserve forgiveness. You enabled a thief, you ignored your only functional child, and you destroyed your own lives to protect her ego. I am not coming back to be your emotional support animal or your financial advisor." Dead silence on the other end of the line. "However," I continued, "I will offer you a relationship under my exact, non-negotiable terms. Number 1, Penelope gets a minimum wage job immediately, starts paying you rent, and enters intense professional therapy. Number 2, you and Valerie go to counseling to fix your toxic enabling behavior. Number 3, you issue a public apology to me, admitting exactly why I left. If you fail to meet even one of these conditions, I will block this number, and you will never hear the sound of my voice for the rest of your natural lives. Do you understand?" "Yes," Victor whispered, his voice cracking. "Anything. We will do anything." I hung up the phone. I did not smile, but I felt a profound sense of closure. Over the past few weeks, they have actually been following my rules. Penelope is currently flipping burgers at a local fast food chain, coming home smelling like grease, learning what hard work actually feels like. Victor and Valerie are in therapy. They followed my rules, and my sister is finally flipping burgers for minimum wage while my parents are in heavy therapy. But honestly, a part of me feels like I should have just left them blocked forever. Am I wrong for still holding on to the anger, or should I eventually give them a real second chance? Let me know what you would do in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed seeing this golden child get hit by a massive reality check, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe for more daily Reddit revenge stories. It really helps the channel grow. See you in the next one.